The work connects rural and urban communities to revitalize indigenous foodways and challenging colonial narratives. Her presentation, titled Social Organization and Teachings of Bioedible Greens from Mexico, presents her participatory art series that celebrates collectors white edible greens from Mesoamerica as a vehicle for healing, solidarity, and food sovereignty. She explores how mutual aid and animistic awareness and community collaboration can help restore indigenous diets and strengthen biocultural relationships in urban settings. Let's welcome Beatriz.
Thank you. And thank you to the Graduate Council of the Berkeley Food Institute for having me in this year's conference on resilient community food systems. And thank you to everyone in the room and online.
Do you mean to have your camera on?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize I don't
Wait
have
a
it.
bit. Oh,
How should I?
there we go. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, I will make this big again. Okay, thank you. So I'm honored to share with you a participatory art series I've been organizing titled Ancestral Quelites, Anarchist Quelites. At the heart of this series are quelites, white edible greens that supported the development of key crops in Mesoamerica. They are nutrient-dense, grow where they please, and are incredibly drought-resistant. During the COVID pandemic, they provided food security to many indigenous and rural communities, both in and out of the city. Outrageously, these plants are considered detrimental or invasive weeds, poor people's food, or cattle feed. Although some of these plants share a Mesoamerican background, I don't refer to all quelites as exclusively native to this region. I use the term simply because it's familiar to people of central Mexico where I live. But since plants of global origin have taken root across our territories, the knowledge and support that quelites offer can't be confined to a single culture. Regardless their origin, most of these wild plants share a similar fate. They are dismissed, forgotten, polluted, and removed from our diets and territories. As an evasion of our eco-trauma, people in the cities dream awake to flee the city and go to the forests. We are enduring the aftermath of gentrification, which is not a separated phenomenon from the loss of traditional ecological knowledge, and its incalculable impact for all life on Earth. But realistically, not everyone can leave their city, so we take action and reconnect and heal the land and ourselves from here. First of all, in this artwork series, we recognize personhood in plants. This is in direct resistance to the ontological turn behind the colonial idea of nature as something separate from us, that paved the way for essentialism and endless extractivism policies. It turned life into a commodity, and often these practices are justified through a shallow culturalist lens. This artwork brings together activists, artists, researchers, cooks, and community organizers, all in dialogue through the lens of these powerful plants, which some of them also saw. The inspiration comes from indigenous ancestral models, but also from practices of mutual aid, solidarity, and self-defense. Together, we are cultivating a multinaturalist and ancestral future consciousness, an effort to heal the effects of colonization on our bodies and territories as BIPOC people. This collective art project proposes to recognize and bring energy back to non-industrialized diets that are traditionally indigenous and working class. We hope to build deeper biocultural relationships in urban spaces and awaken an appetite for culturally appropriate foods, especially at this moment when we are facing the serious consequences of NAFTA USMCA in our health and access to food, especially for people living in economic instability. Quelites are mostly consumed in rural regions, where they are still part of local economies, of systems of barter and solidarity, of the communal time of leaf reaping, of shared kitchens and everyday tables. All of this is a powerful thread in the social fabric that we need to stick back together in urban life. Because in cities like mine, where most of us are the descendants of 20th century rural to urban migration, we've become so assimilated that we can barely recognize the forms of life still alive just outside our doors as we struggle for quality nutrition. Despite the ubiquity of quelites, we are losing the elementary knowledge and traditions that bond us together. Indigenous communities show us another path, and quelites can do so too. Through cosmopolitical relationships and co-creation of biodiversity, they model ways of organizing life that deepen connection to places, to each other, and to non-human world. All of us, no matter our ethnicity or nationality, come from indigenous deep time and its enduring vocation to care for the world and its future. This is the reason why part of the series consists on collective building of offerings for the Mexican tradition Dia de Muertos. It is a way to reintegrate through a key tradition the idea of plants as ancestors. From quelites, we've learned how to take care for other forms of life, not only our own. Just as they did with maize, tomato, chia, cacao, avocado, and vanilla, and they still do at any type of soil. I create chrono-utopian and mythical fictions in order to use storytelling as eco-pedagogy to counterbalance our deterritorialized condition. As you can see, this is not just about plants, it's about people interacting with one another and collectively engaging with the quelites that grow through the cracks of the city, in sidewalks, gardens, planters, and between slabs of pavement. After the indigenization, people of the city are usually understood through the lens of nationhood, ethnicity, class, gender, or ability. These categories create oppression and consequently identity-based ghettos that are kind of relational erasure. One that we reproduce with nature, one that we aim to resist in the series. We gather together, regardless our societal gaps in the different backgrounds. Just give me a second, please. Thank you. Okay. We gather together regardless the societal gaps in our different backgrounds, and for a few hours we become anarchist-like organized squads with different tasks at hand, such as composting, cleaning, recording. We are not against identity, but we want to use it as a transcendental force to practice deep intersectionality to achieve social, ecological, and food justice together. Because a relational erasure leads us to view time as something to control, and space as something to restrict, and food as a commodity. In the series, we enter a symbolic dimension of out of the time of the city logics, beside the crazy honking of cars, the hostile architecture, and the rush of the city workers. Through shared stories, playful games, and self-organized activities, we aim to build emotional connection to the urban foodscape. There is tremendous potential in play and a kind of emotional intimacy that arises in the open field. We learn botany while we play to be archaeoethnobotanists, scavengers from the future, assistants of the underworld. After practicing biorecognition and bioaffectivity, we always eat together. It's not only about smelling roses, it's about gathering symbolic strength to relate to other forms of life from radical tenderness and care, starting with our food. We have a pantry and a pharmacy across the street. Therefore, at a deeper, less controlled level, I hope this leads us toward bioremediation, through caring for the hidden territories beneath urban infrastructure, and also through the everyday food decisions we make. This goes beyond foraging in the conventional sense. It's about progressive connection and collective impact through a constant creative mindset. It is within this framework that we call for a day-to-day political transmutation to recognize the quelites as family, so that our urban experience transcends its own fragmentary rationality. We invite the ramification of the social body in other vital rhythms, whose presences and fluctuations also sustain the symbolic material reproduction of our territory. We exercise non-hierarchical relations through situated practices, such as exercises of expanded literature that settle the tone of each drift. archaeoethnobotanical drifts of biocultural recognition. At this point, I would like to express my full gratitude to my friend Leto Delgado and their project Quelite de Ciudad for being our guide in this practice of the series and teaching us so many about the edible plants, but also for their restless devotion to bioremediate the city and building community with so many city rebels. Garbage collection. We deactivate what I call technologies of death, whose chemicals and microplastics contaminate the earth, water, air, and damage the cell membranes of the quelites. Poetics as plant didactics. We perform mnemotechnical exercises that increase our interspecies affectivity. Visual, written, and sound records, like collective scene making, as the one that you can see here in collaboration with the Food Commons. Collective artworks and exhibitions, such as this at Goethe Institute, or the drawings in solidarity with Tzotzil peasants incarcerated that grow food inside jail. Multinaturalistic reformulations of the Dia de Muertos offerings to sow futures with composed memory and underworld with quelites. Mealtimes that rethink the street dining where the quelites grow. We eat them and return them to the earth. I want to thank the Institute for Anarchist Studies, Cocina Colaboratorio, Obrera Centro, Quelite de Ciudad, MASA, Janina Totzauer, and the Food Commons for helping me co-produce different activations of the series. And I'll be happy to answer any inquiry during the Q&A. I would like to finish my participation with a few remarks. Free Mexican native corn. Rights to Mexican peasants and food workers. Land back to the indigenous peoples of the world. Free Palestine. Thank you.